Hi there. The role that I'll be picking for this assignment is director, and I'll be using the script for Pestilence. I'll be using the script Pestilence written by Oliver Hickey. So the POV start that the script starts with is actually really neat because it starts off as dark, but because it's a POV, it starts us off as dark because the character whose POV it is has a sheet over their head. So that's kind of neat. And then it talks about how the eyes gradually adjust after the sheet is taken off to the light, which is something I'd really like to realize on the screen. Uh, Probably mostly hand that off to the DOP for doing that, but it's definitely something that I want to, make happen. Injections are pretty easy to do, but we can't just dismiss it because of that, since we're the ones that'll theoretically be doing it. So we could either makeup department it with a slab of fake skin and flesh the right skin tone, or with this light, it helps a lot, so we mightn't even have to have its skin tone perfect, or we might even get away with just cheating it by putting the needle true clothing, or having the actual tip of the needle out of frame during the piercing/injection, or even have the POV shut its eyes itself, when it happens, or look away in disgust, or horror or whatever. We'll also need to acquire a syringe, but that's more a prop department thing. And again, it's a factor the director would be involved in, but maybe not too necessary to discuss in a director's role central presentation. Or we'd end up, just constantly digressing into discussing other roles. Nonetheless, I think it's pretty easy to get sheep or animal syringes from farmers' veterinary suppliers without licenses or whatever, so there's that. The blood and bile gushing out of the mouth is fine, just have them hold it in their mouth before the take starts. It's worthwhile making sure the mix, as well as not being poisonous or harmful to accidentally ingest, is also not too vile tasting. Perhaps add some flavorings and check with the actor what their gag reflexes are like. The corrupt blood extractor is prop department, but uh, it'd be cool if it had, pipes that you could see the actual blood, inverted commas, moving through. I think I'd opt to film the scene without the actors first, without the extractor, just with a pipe and strap to put on the actor, and then we'd take our time later filming the extractor and its vat and cut it together into insert shots implying the extractor's presence in the original scene to get it right. This very first scene is the kind that you want to get just right and perfect because naturally it's at the start and also it can be filmed without any of the main cast. Even if the plague doctor who's all covered up, even the plague doctor who's all covered up. So I'd want to film this scene first so that we'd have it to use as proof of quality if the production stalled or needed more money. It's the kind of scene we could show to investors or distributors or even backers or crew before we've finished the full film. The basement is used again in the film, but because of the nature of the low light in the scene, we wouldn't even need the same location for later scenes. There for it to pass off as the same place. As long as we kept the same props, etc., we could match it. In this initial scene, we wouldn't even need to see the walls of the basement, just the distant dark. So after this first scene, it says we see atmospheric shots of the house and then text appears on the screen. But I think it'd be better to have the text as voiceover while we see the shots of the house, and the audience can start to get an awareness of the house's layout before the main characters, and then when Pestilence title card comes up out of nowhere, breaking the mood, it'll be nearly like a jump scare, except without any sound cues. So a couple of things that the treatment talks about, which the script doesn't mention, which I took notes of, was the treatment talks about, it describes the laboratory at the start, and also, the laboratory comes up late in the script a lot. It describes it as a dirty laboratory, and it's very simple, but it really jumped out at me, and, I, yeah, that's just something I wanted to note. I really like the way it said, described it as a dirty laboratory. I think that gives, everyone on the crew so much to work with. So that's just a note I had that I picked up from the treatment, not the script. And then, yeah, the treatment also talks about the plague doctor and the main character whose name has just slipped my mind this exact moment. But it talks about them near the end having a war of words, and it kind of sounds a lot like in Penny Dreadful series 2, the finale, the two characters, they're like big showdown is like just done through words, and I think that would be a really good reference to use for that. Really wouldn't I'd really like to keep that in the finished film. The idea of the antagonist and the protagonist just squaring off just verbally is just so cool to me, and yeah, I'll go more into that. Also, the treatment talks about the uncle's face starts to show through the partially disassembled plague doctor's mask, and that's a really cool visual for quick shorthanding to the audience what's going on, that the uncle is in there somewhere behind the plague doctor persona or spirit. Also, there's a bit where one of the characters is being tormented by speakers playing sounds, and he breaks the speakers, but when he breaks the speakers, the sounds don't go away. And yeah, again, a simple thing, but just that I thought was neat, and I didn't want to lose from the treatment that was mentioned in the treatment, but not the script. And also the treatment tries to describe these photographs in a really long-winded way, and basically the word that it's trying to trying to find is candid. Candid is the word to describe how those photographs should be at the beginning, which was something the treatment caught, but not the script. So, of course, like with any production, one of my responsibilities and, a priority will be money. Um, Again, not sure how deep I should go into that, as I picked the director role, not producer. Obviously, it's still very relevant, of course, so I'll keep it into account throughout. But I don't know if I should be deep diving so far into producer funding, bankrolling territory. But of course, like prop department, it's a different department, but the director will be involved. So obviously, money is a big deal. I talked about a bit about if we could film that first scene, we could show it to investors or funding, or stuff like that. But like I said, maybe that's producer territory that I shouldn't be going into, but it's undoubtedly a responsibility of the director as well as the producer, and obviously a priority to get the film made. So that's definitely on the agenda. So one of the potential complex problems that stood out to me was the character of Jamie, who you is like a transgender or non-binary character, which is fine, but the script seems to make them a very sexual character, and I'm not an expert on this, but I've heard that that's kind of frowned upon, and not a great way to be doing things. Like, I know two recent examples are Ernest Cline's Ready Player 2 book and the Cyberpunk video game. They had, represented transgender or non-binary characters. Well, characters in them, but they portrayed them in a very sexual way, and apparently that's not the right way to do it. You should be featuring, people like that, but you shouldn't make it all about, sexuality and stuff like that. Like I said, I'm not an expert, but that's something that jumped out to me. The script, makes this character, Jamie, very sexual, several times, which is fine, but it seems a bit maybe excessive. So that might be something that we have to flag with the writer, and I'm not sure what it's called, but maybe, get a sensitivity proofreader or advisor involved or something like that. That's just something that stood out to me because we don't want to, represent something the wrong way or, the non kosher way or whatever. And of course, also with the Jamie character, the we'd have to be very involved with the casting department in there. You know, casting if it's transgender or non-binary, an actual transgender or non-binary person, as opposed to just an actor playing that. Because I know that's also very important when it comes to stuff like that. Yeah, it can be very good for the movie. And very good in general, representing these types of people with characters, but it is a lot of work that you have to be very careful with and respectful, and not be you know uh, not be taking shortcuts or cutting corners or anything. If you are going to be including a character like this, you have to be very careful that you do it right, or the whole project could collapse in on itself. True, doing things foolishly. So, absolutely, the single most significant and important responsibility for me as a director, and a priority for the entire project, is location. If we can get the right location, do it well, the whole film will just fall into place. And it really is the most important thing. So, I have talked before already about if we could just film that first scene, we could show it around and maybe get funding, and then that would help with the rest of the location. Like I said, that first scene is set in the basement, but we could film it pretty much anywhere if we have our props and we keep kind of the low light. Uh, Even I was considering doing it a kind of way where even when we can see, the basement walls are kind of dark so that we don't actually see the walls of the place, which means when we come back later to film the rest of the movie and that the rest of the scenes in that basement, we could use pretty much anywhere as long as we kept the props from that first scene, because the we wouldn't have even seen the walls or the layout of the basement in that first scene if we film it with the dark, walls that you can't even see. Uh, yeah, so what I'm saying is if we can film that first scene and trick it so that when we use the basement later, it'll be a different place. Or even we could go back to the same place for that basement if it works really well. But what I'm saying is if we can film that first scene, hopefully we can use it to get the money to get a really proper location for this place. It would be great if we could get, instead of going to different locations, just, use our money on just a really good place that we can film the whole thing in. Um, and hopefully that's already dressed with old furniture or whatever. You'll never know what you'll find until you start looking for one of these places. But as a director, I would definitely push that before we start work on anything, we be looking for a location and getting that in the bag. And once we've got that, like I said, everything else will just fall into place.